This is the department of Lost and Found, the game I made for last week's Big Game Jam. No, not that Big Game Jam. This Big Game Jam. The Global Game Jam. This game sees you working for either the Department of Lost or the Department of Found, stealing or returning items to the people of the world. Let's take a dive into its development. How's it going, everybody? I'm Lewis, also known as Skeffels, and last week I participated in Global Game Jam 2021, joining the Midland Game Industry site. This was my third Global Game Jam, although last time I participated was 5 years ago. Global Game Jam is a competition where developers have a short period of time to create a game around a theme. This year the jam started on Wednesday and ended on the Sunday, however I only really worked on it from the Friday. The theme was Lost and Found, and from the moment it was announced I couldn't think of anything other than a game about working for a department in charge of lost items and found items. To help me progress the idea, I took a look at the diversifiers, which are additional challenges you can take on. So many diversifiers are interesting, but I was drawn to RNG, which is for randomizing something unusual, moving the goalposts, which is for giving the game different win conditions, and I got on the safe side by default because I worked by myself. To make a solid game from all the ideas floating around my head, I wrote them all down on a mind map. This resulted in 3 main areas that I wanted to explore: the game objectives, the gameplay, and the game inspiration. For the game objectives I split into the Department of Lost and the Department of Found, with the idea that you'll work for one of the departments, which will require you to either steal and destroy items from NPCs, or find and give back items to them. The gameplay ideas were split between the player and the NPC, with the player using simple controls and NPCs walking around the environment. Finally, the inspiration for the game. I figured it could be set in something like a shopping centre or theme park, and have a similar aesthetic to Taxi Rampage by Tahit Game Dev or Flyer Kid by Devlog. But for the departments, I was inspired by Officers in the Good Place and Old School RuneScape. While not every idea made it into the game, all these ideas were in the back of my head influencing me throughout the development. As with every project, it began with Cornflower Blue. I added a circle to represent the player and some keyboard controls to move about. I then wanted to add some walls for the player to collide with, however the collision code I wrote for walls last year was absolutely naff. It would look like it was working but then teleport you away seemingly at random. Rewriting wall collision was a pain, but worth it in the end, as this is a more stable implementation and I can utilise it in future projects. Although that being said, it is quite limited, with rectangles being the only supported shapes right now, so I'll probably have to return to it at a later date. I then added NPCs and items for the player to interact with. Both essentially have the same code controlling their interaction with the player, only items will attach themselves to the player when interacted with. Finally, I added all these mechanics together to create objectives for the basic gameplay loop. So interacting with an NPC will spawn an item, which you can pick up and take to a drop-off point, at which point you're rewarded with more time. Having the game mechanics in place was awesome, however I obviously needed to add some art to make the game look nice. I took a look at the Kenny RPG Urban Pack that Tahid used for Taxi Rampage as I thought it had a nice aesthetic. However, I didn't use it as I'm interested in different art styles like you see in Cuphead, Tadpole Tales and Castle Crashers. So I created images for the player, NPCs and item which follow the same colour scheme as the sprite pack but utilise a higher resolution, some basic shading and thick black outlines for this cartoony look. At this point almost everything was in place except a level, so I made some walls and a floor to create a level. Getting the level done really gave me a fantastic understanding of where the game was and what it needed. What I realised was I had implemented only one set of objectives, to steal items from NPCs for the Department of Lost, so I needed to add objectives for the Department of Found. Luckily the Department of Found was similar gameplay, but instead of taking an item from an NPC, you took an item to them. I added splash screens at the start of each game mode and switched player sprite to give each department a unique look. The last feature I added was sound. I wanted some quick sounds as I didn't have much time, so I used BFXR to create a selection of sounds for when an item spawns, the player picking up an item, and the player delivering an item. I also found 3 music tracks from opengameart.org, one for the main menu, one for the Department of Lost, and one for the Department of Found, each of which really add to the atmosphere of the game and give mood to each department. At this point the game was looking great and I uploaded it to the site. But wait, there's more. I still had a few hours left in the jam, so I added particles to highlight objectives, different coloured clothes, skin colours, hair colours, blue walls, green floors, benches, whatever these boxes are, a wallet, glasses, instructions and an end screen. Each of which don't sound great, but in the grand scheme of things really add up and give the game so much colour and atmosphere. At the end of the jam I shared my game with the good people of the Midland Games Industry Discord and got some great feedback. For example, it might be a fun multiplayer game with either teams trying to score the most points or an Among Us style thing where the Department of Found has to find out which player works for the Department of Lost. I really appreciated their feedback on the game and wanted to thank them for hosting. It was amazing to see all the games they produced, which range from a medieval stealth game to a 3D puzzle platformer and even a flying witch game. All in all, I enjoyed the jam. However, the game feels very different from what I've made in the past. In GMT Game Jam and Ludum Dare, I focused a lot on gameplay, whereas this felt like more of a focus on game content. Also, I would have liked to have done more art. The level itself is kind of plain, and there is a clear lack of animations. I wonder if I should have teamed up with an artist or used an art pack like the one I was inspired by. Either way, I can't change it now, and that's a lesson learned. Leave a comment to let me know what you think about the game. It supports Windows and Linux, so if you're interested, check it out. There's a link in the video description. Next week I'll be back to Project Torum, so make sure you're subscribed to get notified when that video is released. I hope you've enjoyed watching this devlog. Leave a like to let me know you did. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.